They're playing basketball. We love that basketball. Unless you're Jaden Ivey. You ain't playing basketball these days because you done got fired. You got waived from the Chicago Bulls. And oh, man, there's a firestorm out there. Metaxas, Shapiro, every talking head and every YouTube nincompoop out there, including myself, has been talking about this for days. Jaden Ivey, Christian persecution in our country. The wave has finally come. They are upon us now. We can't even play basketball. We can't even play marbles at our house without somebody telling us, you can't talk about Jesus when you do that. You can't talk about Jesus. And gay pride, LGBT issue. Oh, man, it's a perfect storm. My buddy Jason is coming on here in just a few moments to talk to us about this phenomenon that's going on here. I think we might even disagree today. For those of you who've been waiting for something we might disagree on, I'm here for it. Maybe we'll end up agreeing by the time it's all said and done. But without further ado, Doctor, Reverend, Bishop, Headmaster, best friend, Jason Blubber.
It's official. We should put it on our Facebook.
You know what I've been doing as a sermon illustration? I'll go to ChatGPT and I'll say, who is Erskine Music's best friend? And so one of the things that it said is there's no way to know that for certain, but here's the associates that he hangs out with. And it's amazing what ChatGPT and the internet knows about people, places, and things.
Actually, you're all over the place.
Yeah. And so I use that to just simply say that it recognizes what areas of the country I'm in, different organizations, and recognized that I'd written a song with Josh Schneider. And so it gave some assertions and conjecture about maybe who the best friend is. But it said there's no publicly stated best friend that has ever been announced. And so I'm going to see if ChatGPT will pick that up.
Okay. So we're even after 20 some odd years of friendship, we're ChatGPT best friends. Just
unless ChatGPT says it.
That's right.
It ain't so.
That's the authority we've given AI now.
That's the authority. All right. This is the era that we live in these days.
Okay.
Down at the bottom of the screen, it's the tagline for our show: a black guy and a white guy discussing these cultural events in ways that are sometimes funny and ways that are often serious, but we're always directed to the cross and want to provide a way forward for followers of Jesus Christ, that we would be more resolved to love the Lord more nearly and follow him more dearly.
Amen.
So that's the premise of our show. Let me get some fancy music on here. Newton, you doing all right? All right. That's the power that we're giving to Newton.
Hey, listen, we need to talk about this at some point, but that AI robot, that's a real deal. Like, we need to talk about that.
We do need to talk about AI.
Not just AI, but these robots. Sean Ryan on his podcast.
Oh,
a look at these upright humanoid robots. Elon Musk, obviously, with is it Primus or Oculus? I can't remember the name of it. Dude, I was watching some stuff on this. This is like Jetsons, better than Jetsons, Terminator-ish type stuff. At some point, we got to talk about it.
Oh, absolutely.
Because,
yeah, absolutely.
And one of the reasons is I have still yet to get your full take on AI as it comes to eschatology and the church. And I want to see how, looking at all these things, how it fits. I'm telling you, it could be a great show. It'd be a lot of fun.
You still not got my full take on this, huh?
I want to hear you forward talk about these things.
You're not ready for my full take on these things, nor are the kids in Dolphin Island. Hey, to Dolphin Nation that's out there, folks who may be a derivative of watching the Erskine Music, now no longer Erskine Music show, and now no longer, well, now it is Live Louder podcast. To Dolphin Nation, I want to say what's up.
All 1 2 3  4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 15 16 17 18 19 20 21 22 23 24 25 26 27 28 29 30 31 32 33 34 35 36 37 38 39 40 41 42 43 44 45 46 47 48 49 50 51 52 53 54 55 56 57 58 59 60 61 62 63 64 65 66 67 68 69 70 71 72 73 74 75 76 77 78 79 80 81 82 83 84 85 86 87 88 89 90 91 92 93 94 95 96 97 98 99 100 101 102 103 104 105 106 107 108 109 110 111 112 113 114 115 116 117 118 119 120 121 122 123 124 125 126 127 128 129 130 131 132 133 134 135 136 137 138 139 140 141 142 143 144 145 146 147 148 149 150 151 152 153 154 155 156 157 158
it is. There it is. All right. We goof off a little bit at the beginning of this show because if you know, we're about to dive down deep on this show. But let me get this copyright disclaimer out of the way. In 1976, they thought of something. They said, you know what? In 2026, Erskine is going to need to do a podcast. Jason is going to need to do a podcast. And we're going to need to give them some fair use to be able to use non-proprietary material. And so they thought ahead, and then we're the recipients of it. Fair use, folks, as we use some of the data that we're going to be getting into today. Breaking news, top story, one of the top stories, still at war in Iran. Live action scene there. All right, let's, if you've not already subscribed to the show, you're very smart people. You can figure out what to do. Let's jump into this Jaden Ivey situation. Before we do so, sir, can you please lead us in prayer?
Father, we're so thankful for this opportunity to talk and just pray that your mercies would be with us and your wisdom, and that we would help the church think biblically and in a way that honors Christ and your kingdom with hope that he's going to restore all things in the end. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right. Well, do you want to set the scene?
I mean, I didn't get a chance to watch your podcast. I tried to check it out on Facebook, but we've been on spring break, so I've kind of tried to veer away from it. And then when you said that you took the position you took on it, I purposely didn't watch anything just so I could have a
yes, good. So that we could have a little.
So I mean, I guess you could set I think it's pretty common knowledge that Jaden Ivey was waived from the Bulls. Interestingly, he was injured. He was going to be not playing for the rest of the year anyways, I think, because he busted his knee.
Right.
And but anyways, he posted something on his social media that offended the LGBT community and portrayed his Christian belief in marriage and whatnot, and traditional marriage, normal marriage, what you want to call it. And the Bulls didn't appreciate that, and so they said, "See ya," and he's out. Is that
he's
the
out?
Gist? And you want to?
That is the gist.
I think that's the gist of it. Right?
About he's got 2 or 3 different posts, some coming out criticizing LeBron James and Steph Curry, talking about the NBA, and then he kind of went for about a 42-minute rant on the NBA, LGBT, Jesus, the way, the truth, and life. And I would just go ahead and say at the start of this, knowing, and you should know that my position is the Bulls had every right to fire him. This is not a top story. We need to get on to some things that actually are the top story. And I think that the majority of people out there are virtue signaling in a way that makes me almost sick to my stomach. I think not the people themselves, but the arguments they're making are idiotic. And I'm about to show you guys that. And that there's a better way that this could have been handled. That's my contention. That's my thesis. Okay. I'm ready to stand on 10 toes with regards to this and show everybody why I've taken the position that I've taken. And it surprised my wife and some other people that I was just like, well, nothing to see here. Bulls fired him. Okay, keep moving. Because I agree in principle with everything that he said.
Right. And I think my tension is I take issue with the Bulls being able to fire him because of what he says. So I don't disagree with him in principle, and I don't necessarily entirely disagree with everything you said, except I take issue with the Bulls being able to, and I would call it a form of discrimination.
Okay.
And I think constitutionally they have a right, but I don't think it's what should be done. I think something needs to be dealt about it.
Okay.
So
yeah, let's jump into it.
All right.
Let's start with a little Ben Shapiro, someone that we all know and respect to a certain degree, and kind of dissect some of his comments. Top story for today: Jaden Ivey's firing being waived by the Bulls. Is this persecution, or is this part of the process of living in a fallen world? All right, Ben. Let's listen to a little bit of this, and then I will insert a few comments, and you can obviously come in whenever you like.
Have nights dedicated to LGBTQ plus minus divided by a sign. And Jaden Ivey got himself in trouble because he posted on Instagram a video talking about NBA's Pride Month. He is a converted, newly religious Christian.
They proclaim Pride Month and the NBA. They proclaim it. They show it to the world. They say, come join us for Pride Month, to celebrate unrighteousness. They proclaim it.
So that seems like fairly traditional Christian belief.
I never want to miss an opportunity to extend the gospel to Ben Shapiro and tell him that without Christ, you can do nothing. To tell him that the mercy seat, the atonement, all the things that he as a Jew are looking forward to have been fulfilled in Christ, and that he can cast himself upon the mercy of Christ. That offer is still available to him, and until it's too late, it's time.
Amen.
So I never want to miss an opportunity to tell Ben Shapiro that. And if I get an opportunity to talk to him personally, I want to make sure that I tell Ben Shapiro that. But if Ben Shapiro and any of his team is listening, come to Christ. He's the way, the truth, and the life. All right. So there's that. Here's where.
Okay. So is he going to? You going to continue on with Ben?
No, I want to get to Jaden Ivey.
Okay. So Ben Shapiro has made his. Obviously, he's not for this, right? That's why we're listening to Ben. Okay.
Yeah. So he's saying that this is wrong. This is a fairly traditional Christian understanding as far as he understands it.
Yeah.
And I'll let him go a little bit longer here.
Right there. That you should not actually celebrate pride in what is considered a sin by the vast majority of the religious world. Well, the immediate response of the Chicago Bulls was to can him. They announced that they had waived him due to conduct detrimental to the team.
Yep.
Apparently, it was very, very bad for the team that he put out an Instagram video proclaiming the same thing that churches all over the country say all the time.
Can I stop right there? And this is where I stopped on my show to just simply say, Jaden Ivey is not the church. Jaden Ivey is not the chaplain of the team. Jaden Ivey is not the representative that the Bulls have asked to speak on those type of religious issues.
Yeah, but he's still a Christian, and he's still a American citizen, and he's still all the other things too.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
But this is not the first year that the NBA has celebrated Pride Month, or any of the major organizations have celebrated Pride Month.
Right, but it doesn't mean that we can't speak out against it. We've spoken out. I mean, we should still have the platform to talk. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe I should frame this a little, okay? Because I think what's happening, this is the fruit of something else, okay? In my opinion. So in 1964, we had the protected classes under federal law, right? It's the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also
And
known as.
essentially, the law focuses on status-based protections, not beliefs. It's the status of people. And so based on race, color, religion, sex, national origin, and so, this sets the basis for what we already have in the Bill of Rights extended into, we just can't start discriminating against Americans. And this is primarily the government. So I should be fair to say the government can't do this. Then you have Bostock versus Clayton County, which extended the idea of sex into gender and homosexuality. And what happened in that case is you've now elevated the LGBT community into a status people.
Mm-hmm.
So you have race, color, religion, sex, national origin, and now you have under sex, you have this status of people, the LGBT people. Okay,
Mhm.
this is a problem. This is where our roots began. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is wonderful, but Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch, or whatever, I can't pronounce his last name. Gorsuch. He pretty much said that an employer who fires an individual merely for being gay or transgender defies the law. And then he goes on to define that these folks are protected for their sexual orientation. That's massive because this puts the tension, right?
Mm-hmm.
1964 Act says that the government, private employers cannot discriminate in their hiring. You follow? Okay. But yet, my question is how can the government forbid discrimination in hiring yet allow ideological discrimination in employment? See, they created this tension.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's my problem. That's my problem is that the bulls are exploiting that tension. And I think that it's going to cause, first of all, the whole shift in 2012 with President Obama's view of homosexuality, and then it growing into the 2020 court case, which pretty much gave this LGBT identity as a protected legal category, is now going to create tension between religious identification, religious convictions, and sexuality in marriage. That's what this is the fruit of that. This whole conversation is the fruit of those decisions.
So I would say that tension has existed before. That tension, whether or not we've known it or not, that tension has always been there. And I think that we have maybe tacitly looked at organizations that we either are in favor of or are not really even concerned about that much and just said they can do what they want to because it allows freedom on the other side for me to do what it is that we want to. Because on the other side of this, hold on 1 second.
I'm sorry.
Let me just state this. On the other side of this, if it's a conservative versus a progressive opinion and somebody says something like, hey, we really were in support of Charlie Kirk, the way he was assassinated, and they came out and they made some kind of offensive speech. They were fired as a teacher, or they were fired from some kind of major network and broadcast because of that. We would look at that and we would say, yeah, it's good. Fire them. They shouldn't be talking like that. As a private employer, that opinion is so out of step with the organization or where the culture is at, they could be fired for that.
Well, there's a couple of things with that, though. The one is that's speech advocating violence. I don't think that's the same as the protected right to religion and to protected, because this is not just free speech. This is the tension between religious conviction, a stated Bill of Rights. You have the freedom of religion inside of this country, and I don't think that tension existed before we made the LGBTQ community a protected status people. We didn't have it because the religious freedom always trumped because it was a protected right. And so now what you're having is you having the government who says, okay, we can't hire, you can't discriminate when you hire, but you can discriminate in your ideology and your employment. And that's what's happening with the bulls. It's his Christian belief in marriage and his view that this protected status of people is now who the Bible is acting unrighteously. He is now expressing a deeply held Christian conviction that's been for the last 6,000 years and was embraced in this country since its inception until just recently, that he is now going to be penalized for his religious convictions through his employer. And I think that there's a problem. There's a real problem there. This is going to grow. And if we don't address and deal with this, we're going to have a real problem.
And so I'm trying to locate problem as in this sets a dangerous precedence, or problem as in we should not have LGBT issues elevated to the status of being a protected class.
Both.
I see two points of reference there.
I don't think the LGBT, I don't think your sexual preference is a protected status. You open that door, and I know people are going to flip out when I say this, but if you open that door, where do you close it? I mean, will pedophiles now be a protected status?
Sure.
Be a protected status? you because if you look at the LGBT, it's gender's always fluid and everything's always changing. How do you protect that? And second of all, I just don't think your sexual preference is a protected status.
So, Jason, this is a far better conversation that we are having than what the mainstream media or the conservative talking heads are talking about, because what you are talking about is actually the crux of the issue, and where I would advocate that we actually need to spend the bulk of our time. If there's laws or interpretation of laws that need to be changed within the context of the federal government that are going to relate to private organizations, we need to start there as the genesis of the conversation.
Right.
But I'm starting with, here's what we have presently, and here's what the Bulls did, which was within their constitutional right to be able to respond this way. And it's not surprising that this happened, because this happens, I think, not just in this situation, but it's happened in a lot of occasions, and it happens in everyday life to some extent. If I were to be a school employee, you and I both work for the public school in Texas, and I were to go on a rant on my Facebook about the school, the organization, maybe some of the other teachers that are known, I would be disciplined. I may even be fired, depending on what it is that I am saying. I think we get to the workplace and we can hold beliefs and we can articulate our views, but I think there's a line of wisdom that I don't think people are taking into account here. I think he crossed that line to a certain extent.
And say, Russell, I get that, because I don't want to take rights away from companies. If you start letting the government start to draw these lines, I mean, you start messing with communism and socialism pretty quickly. I feel that tension. You know what I'm saying? I feel that tension. What I'm saying is, I think the courts have made a mistake. This idea that protecting the LGBT as a protected class, a status of people, was a mistake. It's creating a tension between your freedom of religion, speech, and this other group, right? Because they didn't take into account how these two status peoples are meant to engage each other inside of our pluralistic society. Now, and there's not a lot of precedence for companies having these restrictions, even though if you go back into civil rights, I mean, everybody was just rightly pissed that these companies were not hiring people properly.
I'm going to look at the comment section in a second.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm going to look at the comment section in a second. I know there's some people who have commented.
Yeah. So, but there was a case, and this is a rare case, but there was a case in 1946, Marsh versus Alabama, where the court considered whether a company-owned town could restrict religious expressions. A bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses were handing out literature on sidewalks on a town-owned corporation type thing, and the
private
court
owned.
Said, yeah, and the court said private owned, and the court said that the company functioned like a public. How do they say it? When private power takes on public function, constitutional protections may follow. I think that's what Justice Hugo Black said. Okay, and so there is a place where the court has said, hey, look, whenever these companies begin to function more publicly, and I'm not even sure what that even means exactly, that they constitutional protections can follow, and then also restrictions, I guess. I don't think this precedent is not established very well. I mean, they don't use this doctrine very much at all. But I think the principle that it raises is that large institutions like the Bulls, large corporations like the Bulls, shape our culture and public discourse. And where do we, as a people and as a government, find accountability and find that protection when these companies begin to go overboard or cross certain lines constitutionally? That's the point I'm bringing up, right? I think the Bulls are walking this line. They have the right to fire Jaden Ivey. I get that. They are private. They have a right to protect their brand. They have a right to protect their policies and their belief system. They do have that right. But at the same time, when do those rights infringe on the right to be able to speak freely about what your convictions are without of losing the one thing that you need to survive, which is your income?
Yes. I'm here for all of that discussion. My friend, that is the discussion that we need to be having. I hope the comment section is populated with varying thoughts of how we go about adjudicating those concerns that you're expressing. But when I go on Instagram and the next day I see Metaxas, Shapiro, all the people, we are going to have to boycott the NBA. We're going to have to throw away all of our Chicago Bulls paraphernalia and all these different things. I think that's the wrong course of action.
Yeah. Well,
I think that you and I's discussion is a better place for us to start in terms of where the tension points and how do we, we've got to figure this out to some extent, but can we listen to the rest of what Ben Shapiro has to say? I think there's a couple of other things.
I don't want to take anything away from Ben, right?
So Jaden Ivey then went to Instagram Live to defend himself. He was at the airport.
They said my conduct is detrimental to the team, right? Why didn't they just say we don't agree with his stance on LGBTQ? Why didn't they say that? But how is it conduct detrimental to the team? What did I do to the team? What did I do to the players? I did nothing but practice with them, play with them, pass the ball to them, good teammate to them. Said good job, good shot. I said, good job, good pass. Way to play, bro. Right? I said these things to my teammates. Was never detrimental to them.
Oh.
So why is it that the NBA and the Chicago Bulls say that I'm detrimental to the team? How? Because I believe in the truth. Because I know Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life.
So if all he said was good pass, good teammate, good job, nice shot. If that's all he said, and he went on Instagram for 42 minutes talking about his teammates and the Bulls and Steph Curry and LeBron, he'd have a job. That wasn't all he said. And I think that you and I both recognize in the world that we live in, the CTE scandal brought this out. NFL protects the shield. NBA protects the brand. They're a profit-making organization. They don't care about Jaden Ivey. Jaden Ivey is not Michael Jordan. Now, if Michael Jordan had come out and said some crazy stuff, they'd be like, okay. If a current player that's popular on the roster, contributing, had come out and said something, they may have said, hey, what are we doing with the Instagram? But Jason, here's the kicker. Every team, as far as I understand, has a chaplain for the team. Did he bounce this off the chaplain? Did he talk to him and say, hey, I'm about to go on Instagram 42 minutes. I'm just going to give a rant about how unrighteous the organization is and how we celebrate pride and how evil and wicked and perverse this generation is. You know, young Jason, you know, young Erskine, in our zeal, sometimes we perform without knowledge.
Well, it definitely wasn't the wisest move for him. And that's, I don't know, is he a young believer?
I think he's maybe days or months into becoming a follower of Christ. So
the thing is you have this wisdom thing, right? That he needs to kind of discern when and where to speak. But however, it still goes back to these competing tensions that just shouldn't be there to begin with. And he does make a point. He's essentially offending the brand. And there is another course of action that Chicago could have taken with this. They could have disciplined him. They could have said, hey, we don't agree with him. They could have done all kinds of things. But they wanted to make a point because the problem with this conflict is you have two competing moral authorities.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you have one system that's demanding affirmation of identity. That's the LGBT group. I mean, I'm sorry. Either you buy in 100% and you identify with us, or you are out. I think that's been made clear, especially through wokeism. But the other demands obedience to God's truth, and what he said was correct in the sense that it is unrighteousness, it isn't right. But then, of course, you have to be discerning about how you go about those conversations. And is this conversation the best conversation to have right now, or is there a better way to have these conversations where you give yourself some room? Because when you just come out attacking, I feel for him, because I feel like a lot of our athletes are just morally cowards. And I don't find very many of them worth watching as far as their social life goes. That even goes for Steph Curry. I love him on the basketball court, but I've not been a fan of him and some of the things he's said or supported. And I'm like, he has a right to do that, and he lives in America, and that's great. And I understand that he seems to be like a pretty legit nice guy. But when it comes down to push comes to shove, as people who are professing Christ, we need some stronger athletes, and so Jaden Ivey somewhat tried that, but he obviously crossed the line for the Bulls, and they took the position they did. Again, I just feel like this tension, this is going to get worse. This has been building up since 2012, 2020. Now, to be fair, the court has been more aware of this tension, because you remember the Colorado baker, the Masterpiece Cake Shop.
Uh-huh.
So the baker declined to create a wedding cake for a same-sex couple, and that was in 2018, something like that, 2016, and the whole woke people went nuts and just thought this was going to be a slam shut case where the government's just going to come down on this cake shop, and it didn't. Actually, the court ruled in favor of the bakery, that the commission, the Civil Rights Commission of Colorado, that their actions were inconsistent with the First Amendment's guarantee that our laws be applied in a manner that are neutral toward religion. That's what they said. You also have the creative versus Ellenist, I think is what
was that the Seattle case?
Yeah, no. It was a web designer, again, in Colorado.
Okay.
That required her to the same-sex people wanted her to create websites celebrating same-sex weddings, and they said no, you can't do that. Now the difference is these are owners of institutions, like they own their companies. You know what I'm saying? That's the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Jaden Ivey doesn't own the Bulls, so he's an employee with the Bulls. So the court has been in favor of making sure that companies themselves are able to withhold their constitutional rights and their convictions, their religious convictions, against the tension of the LGBT. But they have not made the step where they say, hey, look, if you're an employee, you can't be fired over your religious conviction. That to me, I think is just, I don't know. I think it flies against what they've stood for in 1964.
Yeah. If that were the case and that were the discussion, I'm here for it all day long. But I think you identified something, Jason, and everything that you said is absolutely correct. And I think we are just hitting the button time and time again with what the actual issues are in this case that have been brought to the forefront. But here's a situation where the culture that we live in, there's two ways. Jesus said there's a broad road and a narrow road. If you want to make a bunch of money, and Vodi Bakum is kind of the classic example of this. He had potential to go to the NFL, and he had agents that were telling him, go to the combine, get drafted by a team, play a couple of years in the NFL, you'll have money, then you'll have a platform to be able to talk about Jesus. Vodi Bakum tells them, I guess as the story is related, I don't need a platform. Jesus is my platform. That is all what I'm going to speak about.
Yeah.
So he doesn't have the money. He doesn't have the experience in the NFL and all those different things, because that would have been incompatible at that particular time. In Christian music, and I'll just speak about myself, people say, why don't you talk to major record labels? To your point, Jason, we got a bunch of cowards in the Christian music industry. In the Christian music industry, we have cowards who will not speak about these issues. They're not going on their podcast talking about how evil and unrighteous the LGBT community is and how that itself has foisted itself as a form of religion in our culture and trying to adjudicate these issues. They're cowards because you know what they can do? They can go to a show, they can sing their little songs, they can dance around, have a couple of lights, sign a couple of autographs, VIP experience, never talk about these issues and make a lot of money. So you got to make a decision in this world, Jason. You got to make a decision in this world. Are you going to talk about real stuff? Are you going to go the Jaden Ivey approach and then be fired, be waived, be ostracized? I'm not going to say the name of the festival, but the last time the festival ever talked to me, I was moving up the stages. Made it from the side stage to the main stage. Main stage, I was showing out at this festival. I got up and talked about abortion.
Isn't that crazy?
Never heard a word from that festival again. I'm not saying it's because I talked about abortion from the main stage in my performance and the allotted time that I had up there.
Yeah.
But maybe that was conduct that was detrimental to the team.
Man, you mess with their brand. You mess with their money.
And somebody might have got uncomfortable. And I just think that there's a part of that is, I think Jaden Ivey has the skill level and the talent once he gets healthy to be able to make it on with another team. I think he'll probably have some people that'll come and say, hey, you can go one of two ways. You don't have to play in the NFL or the NBA, excuse me. You can go and start a ministry and do whatever that you want to do. You got a lot of groundswell support and there's a lot of people that are in favor of you and maybe bring to light some of these issues. Or you can go play in the NBA and, unless asked, maybe you don't volunteer. All of that. Or maybe in your own podcast in the off season, you could talk about some of those things.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I have a couple of ideas and a couple of questions. One, I think this all goes back to money. Because you kind of hit this on the nail.
Absolutely.
Michael Jordan would have done this. We ain't having this conversation right now. Especially mid-90s after what, three, 4 championships. We're not having this. He's not fired. He's not waived. Of course, in the 90s, he's probably not waived anyways, just because, different times. But, they're not going to waive him. All of Chicago sports are extremely liberal. The Cubs, the Bears, the Bulls. It's the suckiest thing about being a Bears Cubs fan is that not only do
it sucks to be a Bears fan.
Yeah, I'm literally wearing a Bears jersey right now. And not only do we have to tolerate the losing atmosphere, we have to put up this progressive nonsense. Wicked and whack. And I don't know. There's a part of me that just at times have wanted to just bail. But anyways, that's another story.
Where else could we go?
Yeah, where else could we go?
Not going to be a slacker fan.
Yeah, no. And so you have the money. This isn't about morality, and this isn't about their love for the LGBT. Because we saw this. You go woke, you go broke, right? All this nonsense going on in 2019 and 2020, 21. We're all like, oh, we're all for the social justice, and we're gonna pound this.
Yes, we're for it until we're against it.
Until the bottom line drops. Then the bottom line drops. We're out. And that's exactly, they are a bunch of greedy. Oh man, I'm a pastor. I can't be talking like this.
Don't do it, Pastor. Hold him back. Hold him back. Don't do it. I'm gonna take your microphone away from you. Greedy,
narcissistic people who run these things, and all they are is about the bottom line. That's all they care about. And I have no time for that. So I wish this was really about these issues, but it's not. The other question I have for you though, with Jaden Ivey and this whole thing is, what does the Black community think about this? What do you think? Like, are they divided? Are they? I haven't been paying attention to the outcry. I know the Black community as a whole, I don't think really buys into the whole same-sex thing, because I've watched like different people speak on it. Even come on, the Black comedian.
Chappelle?
Yeah. he talked about this thing about putting black men in dresses on TV. Did you ever watch his interview?
No, I didn't watch that interview.
You should watch it because he explores this thing that happens where
I heard about it.
What they do to black men on TV, right? And I thought that was interesting. But I'm curious, Erskine, what's the black community think about Jaden Ivey's position and the Bulls and all this?
Well, let me give you the condensed down version of what the black community thinks about Jaden Ivey's situation.
Being that you're black.
Speaking as the lone representative of the black community. I go no farther though, Jason, when, obviously we have a categorical error when we begin talking about race. Talked about that a little bit with Doug Morrow this last week on my show. And I even hate to give the categories, the way that our world is given the categories. It's just so jacked up. But if we were to use the NAACP as a bellwether of what we would say some black people think, maybe even a majority if we were to, divide that up in the statistical category, we would say that the NAACP has been reticent. Well, I'll just go ahead and say they have just kowtowed to the LGBT community. And again, it comes down to, you're a pastor and I'm a wannabe pastor, this greedy, conniving, couched with the veil of we're trying to help the advancement of black people in our society, but it's really money grab, grifting of the NAACP and a mindset that says, oh, this is okay. As long as we look the other way and we get the money and the influence that it comes from partnering with this position, we'll be okay. And I think that it's backwards. It's evil. The NAACP, as far as I'm concerned, is irrelevant. After about 2 days of its existence, they just have shown themselves time and time again through the years to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
And some of the grifters that have been involved with that. And if you're presently a part of the NAACP, Jason and I would like to formally invite you to come to our show and talk to us about the history of the NAACP, especially in relationship to this specific question in partnership with the LGBT community. It is just an embarrassment. And so if I were one of those black people that wanted to always talk about the black community, it's funny, Jason, I met these three ladies in a coffee shop yesterday, and that sounds like the beginning of a good joke, and I guess maybe it was. But one of the ladies, she kind of got my attention, and she was talking to me about some stuff, and was like, who are you, and all the different things. And I thought, this is a bit odd, but I'm usually the friendlier one. But normally when it's, ladies, I don't just come out and just meet them. But, they wanted to know who I was and what I was doing, and told them I was editing a podcast, and started talking to me. And they're like, oh, we meet, we have a little podcast, do some different things. And one of the ladies was talking to me about the fact that she's an advocate for these black advancement groups. And it was all I could do, Jason. All I could do. I literally felt like there were some spiritual reins that were being held on my mouth. And I kept thinking it over and over again. I was like, don't say what you're thinking. Don't say what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And I was asking myself the question. She came to me and she thought that it would be an inroad to talk to me about the advancement of black people in our society. I wanted to say, why the hell do you think I care about the advancement of black people in our society? I care about the advancement of all people. And if we're not going to bow the knee to Jesus, nobody's moving forward in the society. I don't care what you think you have or what you think you can get. And furthermore, the black community, see, Jason, you done got me started. I wanted to just talk about Jaden Ivey, wanted to talk about constitutional amendments, and now you done got me started.
Yeah.
But furthermore, as it relates to the black community, the dumbest thing the black community has ever done. Eric Mason, you listening to this? Some of the leaders in the evangelical world in the black community, the dumbest thing you ever did was try to coalesce power in the black community and say, for us, by us. That mentality is the stupidest thing you have ever done, because you cut yourself off from resources, you cut yourself off from influence, you cut yourself off from legitimate talking points, you cut yourself off from accountability with other people around you who could have helped your position. And now this black only it's for us, it's by us, let's put the dollars in our community mentality that you have is crippling the black community because you don't have the influence, you don't have the power, you don't have the money, you don't have the organization, and now you look like idiots. All right, back to our former program.
He has a point. The team could have just said, we disagree with his comments. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. By the way, in the UFC, this happens all the time. And Dana White routinely says this about people that he disagrees with in the UFC who say things that are actually quite morally bad. And he will say, you're allowed to say what you want to say. I disagree with it, but it's not my job to sort of police the speech of other people. But the Bulls just cut Ivey. They just waived him, which is kind of incredible. Jaden Ivey posted a video.
All right, 7 games. That equates to like a 7-game suspension, by the way. And he wasn't going to play those 7 games anyway. Collateral damage.
Yeah. Now he's just got to find another team, right?
Yeah.
He's just got to.
Stephen A. Smith.
Anybody will pick him up, right? Because they all kind of collude together. So.
Yeah, I just think that he will find some folks to disciple him, and that's really one of the talking points that I think is missed in this conversation is that I think all of these people are hypocrites because I would love to get to know Jaden Ivey, and I would love to, hand him some books from John Calvin, some John Piper, work that's out there, really begin to see discipleship take place in his life and see how we can formulate some organizations and some partnerships whereby he can communicate with other NBA players who have the same passion. He can have a voice to communicate with the league about lessening the degree of pride and maybe eliminating it altogether. I think there's so many helpful and healthy routes that he could grow as a believer if he were discipled than enfranchising this sort of renegade, everybody say what they want, do what they want.
Yeah.
Because if he gets fired and he doesn't get hired by another team, are you picking him up, Ben Shapiro? Is he coming to be a spokesman for the Daily Wire?
Does it work for the Daily Wire?
Is he coming? Is he coming? Eric Metaxas, if he doesn't get picked up by another NBA team, is he coming to work for you? Are you going to put your arm around him and say, hey, brother, we got a spot for you. We're going to disciple you. We're going to grow you up. You're a mouthpiece, bright star, up and coming young man.
He can come coach basketball at Litchfield Christian School. He can make in 1 year what he probably made in a day, in a week.
Oh, you mean one game?
Yeah, one game.
Half a game.
Yeah, probably. Yep.
Yes. Half a game salary.
Yeah.
Litchfield Christian School is willing to pay you
That's
to
right.
come and coach there.
That's
Be
it.
an influence in the community.
Yep.
So let's hear Stephen A.
Leaks, quote, unrighteousness, end quote. Ivey has been active on social media lately, vocalizing his religious views. Ivey's mother, Niele, is the head women's basketball coach at Notre Dame, right up the road at South Bend. Stephen A., what do you make of the Bulls' decision here to waive Jaden Ivey?
It's perfectly within their right to do so. I've only met Jaden Ivey once or twice. I liked him. I met him when he was drafted. His parents were there, obviously. It's one of those situations, I think, and this is why I wanted to tackle this subject, because I wanted to make a point that's very, very important. People have their different views. And on First Take, especially, as long as I'm here, we're not going to sit up here and ostracize anybody. People are entitled to be conservative. They're entitled to be liberal. They're entitled to be, independent, whatever side of the aisle you lean towards, whatever your religious beliefs or what have you, that's fine. But what's needed in terms of the message that's being conveyed, what's needed to be brought across is that just as I said, those individuals have that right, so do the Bulls organization or any organization. They have a right to be picky about who they want representing their brand and their product, as does the NBA. The NBA, the NFL, and various sports leagues pride themselves on being inclusionary. That's a fact. That's the way that it goes.
That's where the money
goes. They
goes.
don't want to come across as alienating anyone. And when you say things and do things that are antithetical to anything that they represent, then you're going to hear from the brand. And by the way, Jaden Ivey, listen to me, my brother. I work for ESPN, which is owned by Walt Disney. It doesn't mean that I have to parrot Walt Disney's speech, or I have to march lockstep in every single thing that we believe as a company.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Stephen A., I'm telling you, I like Stephen A. a lot, even though I disagree with half the crap he says. I like him. I think he's good. He's good for sports, and he doesn't like the Dallas Cowboys, so that's kind of fun. But I'm sorry, when Disney says jump, Stephen A. says how high, because at the end of the day, they will cut him. They'll do away with Stephen A.
Well, in his book, he talks about that.
Yeah.
I actually finished reading the book Straight Shooter while walking around at the sanctuary. I guess it was one of the times we were visiting at the church in Litchfield. It's funny when you're reading a book, especially an audio book, you remember where you're at when you're reading it.
Yeah.
I remember walking around the sanctuary for hours listening to his book, Straight Shooter. And he would be a person that would be interesting to talk to about this, because he actually, I think, has run his mouth quite a bit, gotten himself fired, and then gotten himself rehired and kind of rebuilt his brand.
Yeah.
And so I think maybe that's, he says some other things in here, but I think that's maybe the admission that you can actually talk crazy. And I think that Colin Cowherd actually says it best. I'll pop over to him in just a second. But you got to know when, where, to whom to pick your spots.
Yeah.
And I think that that's sort of characteristic of all of life.
Yep. Timing. No.
Timing and context.
Know the
matter.
battle, know when. Use discernment, But like I said, I like Stephen A. a lot. I enjoy listening to him, even though I would disagree with him on some things. I think he tries to present, at least according to his worldview, a fair shake on his worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same reason why I can listen to, like, even Bill Maher and Pierce Morgan and some of those other guys. I think they hold a different worldview than I hold to. I do think they try to provide some balanced time for discussion and put fair pushback. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And so I can appreciate that. But at the end of the day, when Disney signs your checks, and the same philosophy is applying to the Bulls, he's obviously accepting with Disney. And I don't disagree with what he says. I'm just telling you, this goes back to something that was created by the government when we didn't clarify this protected people very well. So,
Colin Cowherd, I actually sometimes love Colin Cowherd. Sometimes I very much dislike Colin Cowherd, but I think that he always always keeps it a buck.
Yep.
Start dying for guard play, and they let him go. Why would that be? Bulls, 7 games left, said hit the road, which they have every right to do legally. Here was their coach, Billy Donovan.
We have people from all different walks of life working in the building, and players from all different walks of life, right? So the first thing is, everybody comes with their own personal experiences, but one is we got to all be professional. I think there's got to be a high level of respect for one another, and we got to help each other, and then be accountable to those standards.
You are always entitled to your own opinion, but you're never entitled, especially if you're not productive or you're disappointing, to disrupt the workspace. And that's the thing about life. I tell my kids jokingly, half jokingly all the time, be really.
Is that standard equally applied to Jordan Ivey, though? Because what he is saying is, if he's entitled to his opinion and he holds this opinion, are you firing the LGBT person when they do the same thing he has done? And I don't think that's the case.
No, it's not the case. And let me be clear about the fact that it's not just scales here, but it didn't just get like this. It's been like this.
But it doesn't matter if it's been like this. It's still wrong. What they're trying to do is apply a standard. They're trying, again, here's that tension of protected status people. When you have two status people who fundamentally disagree with each other, I mean, fundamentally disagree with each other. How do you protect one over the other? And inside of this situation, when the LGBT seems to be the most preferred right now, right? That's the most preferred. They're not applying the scales of justice there. They're going to tell Jaden Ivey to sit down and be quiet, which is what they told him to do. And so if you're going to go on this idea that you're entitled to your opinion, but you need to shut up about your opinion, that's not being entitled to your opinion at all. And the preferred status then is the LGBTQ. That's what they're saying. That's the preferred status.
Sure.
If you don't have the preferred status, then you're going to find yourself suffering the consequences. Again, legally, the Bulls have the right to do this. I understand it. I don't think it's wise. I don't think it's good. But the Bulls were given this because the government failed to resolve this tension. And so that's
yes. So what I'm saying about that is it didn't just get that way. It's been that way. So every NBA player, NFL, Major League player is signing on to a league that is already biased against their views. If you want to precipitate a fight or a discussion, you can go on a rant on Facebook, and then maybe if enough people start doing that, we'll end up having to duke it out because it'll be such a workplace disruption, players agreement disruption, money disruption, that now we've got to solve the issue. But I think most players sign on to the league knowing that there's going to be a gay pride, because there was a gay pride or month or week or celebration or show or whatever it was. And Doug Morrow actually said something that I thought was kind of insightful. Do you remember when the Atlanta Hawks were trying to get like that Magic City Strippers Club to like sponsor a game and like do some sort of crazy thing there? Were you aware of that?
No.
Well, anyway, there was enough of an outcry from like D1 Christian rappers that were out there and some folks that were just like, no, this absolutely is unrighteousness. It's wicked. You speak out against it. He started a grassroots movement and they were able to get that canceled. And so maybe Jaden Ivey is thinking he's got some momentum with the Chicago Bulls and he'll be able to pull the same thing off and get him to cancel, Gay Pride Month.
No, he's not going to be able to do that. Listen, Gay Pride Month is embedded in their moral priority. And the framework that we're working, it's not neutral. And I get what you're saying. He's got to sign on to this. I'm saying that's a conflict of interest. And essentially what you're saying is we don't live in a land of life and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's gone. And I know that Christians have to recognize that the legality and the constitutionality and morality don't always align. The Bulls' practice may be legally permissible while it remains morally unjust. And that's the tension, right?
Sure.
That's where I think the pushback is coming so hard, as we're seeing that out loud, and it doesn't sit well with Christians. It doesn't sit well with, I think it doesn't even sit well with religious people in general, which is like 98% of the world, and still a big portion of America. But you know what? There it is. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Sorry, Jaden. Sorry, brother.
Well, I think there is something to this next part of what Colin Cowherd says, and I want to maybe end with this, and then we can land the plane for today.
Be great at something, you'll be able to get away with more.
Yeah.
The legendary stories that Bill Belichick tells about Lawrence Taylor when he was a defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. And one time he showed up 15 minutes late to a meeting, and Belichick goes to Bill Parcells and says, Bill, I just thought I'd tell you, Lawrence showed up 15 minutes late to our meeting. And Bill Parcells said, why the hell did you start the meeting? He's the best football player in the league. Jimmy Johnson, guy falls asleep at a meeting, kicked him off the team. Troy Aikman did. Troy, get up. Troy, the meeting's still going. Life's full of gray. And I understand that Christians feel marginalized. I get it. And you often have a point. And you can often take these disruptions to court. Gina Carano, an actress, right? Stuff like that happens. But the more skilled and talented, I know it stinks, right? You get away with more. We all know that Dennis Rodman and Draymond Green created some headaches for Steve Kerr and Phil Jackson. But they got 4.5 more rebounds per game than headaches per game. And so they stuck around.
All right. Well,
that's the world you live. That's Genesis 3, right? That's the world you live in.
That's the world that we live in.
So
that's the world that we live in.
Got to play the game. I hope that Jaden does get a part of a church. I hope that he is discipled. I hope that he weathers this. I hope that I hope he learns how to speak truth in love with wisdom and gentleness.
Or, Jason, if I could interrupt you, to speak the way that he's speaking, knowing that the consequences of such is going to put him in a different arena than what he's in.
Yeah.
And I say that figuratively, but also literally. He may become a pastor, in which on my show, I can talk any way that I want to talk.
That's right. I'll go create my own league. Yeah.
I got a lot of different options out there. There'll be 4 players in my league, averaging a sum total of 57 cents per game.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? It's
WNBA will outperform what we do
in the world that we live in. But I think he's absolutely right. And don't we see this? There's this, pretty bias that we have in our culture. There's the rich bias that we have in our culture. Yeah. We've talked about a couple of things. Yeah. If you look a certain way, you speak a certain way, you have a certain demeanor, people give you more passes.
Yep.
Carl Lentz will probably get back into ministry.
The beautiful people, even in the church,
the church even. And so
get it.
I don't want us to be thinking that this is like if Jaden Ivey is averaging 27 points a game.
Jordan,
I'm sorry.
Goes back to Jordan. If you can get away with it.
The Bulls would have found a way to come out with a public statement, although we don't agree.
Although we do not agree, and we think he should change his position. We still like 27.5 points a game.
Exactly. Exactly. So I don't want people thinking that, one, I'm in support of the LGBT community. Not anything about that is, what resonates with me. But the world that we live in is one in which I don't want to see hypocrisy rule the day.
Yeah.
Because these same people that are very much in support, we support Ivy. I want to say, keep that energy. Keep that energy in all of life.
Yeah.
For this young man. Keep praying for this young man. Support him in his future endeavors.
Yep.
Or, as I fear, when the next news cycle, the news story comes along and there's something else that Christians can chase, we'll forget all about Jaden Ivey.
They will.
Suckers.
Yeah, suckers.
This is so unlike me to be calling Christians suckers the day before Easter, but this show falls where it falls.
I think I just grow weary with the Western church so much. The American church in general just frustrates me to no end sometimes. And I don't want to take it.
It's a way forward takeaway.
Like we got it, but well, I'll tell you what. The way forward takeaway with this is there's a framework that we have to look at, right? So if Calvin has taught us that God ordains all things, yet he also holds that tension between humans being accountable, responsibility. One of my favorite quotes by Abraham Kuyper reminds us that Christ claims authority over every sphere of life. Every square inch is mine. R.C. Sproul emphasizes that God's sovereignty governs everything down to the smallest molecule. He says Sproul says if there's one maverick molecule, God is not sovereign. So we have to totally embrace that God's sovereignty establishes everything, and that we're responsible for working within that framework, right? And so we act faithfully according to our convictions in line with God's sovereignty, but we're not to give ourselves to fatalism either, right? Just because God is sovereign doesn't mean we don't need to engage and respond and to try to restrict wickedness or approach or address wickedness, right? So fatalism believes that it's just going to be what's going to be, so I resolve myself to whatever the consequences are. I don't think that's inside of the Christian faith either. I think that we have a right to push back against the bulls, just as much as the bulls have the right to let Jaden Ivey go because they prefer the LGBT status over religious conviction. That is their legal right. I think that we need to push back against that in the sense that that is, though legally permissible, it seems it is morally unjust. And I think that the government, as much as I'm for small government, needs to readdress the constitutionality of this protected status they've given to the LGBT community. I think it's going to essentially erode religious liberty that we have in our country. I think Christians need to be about both. And I think that Christians need to understand that the law distinguishes between identity and expression. That distinction explains why an employer may face liability for refusing to hire someone based on their identity, race, gender, whatever, while retaining the authority to discipline, I guess, any kind of speech that goes against their brand or conflicts with their policies. And that means that the framework that we live in does not operate a neutral system. It reflects that there are moral priorities that are embedded within the law and with the company that you're working with. So as Christians, we need to understand that. And that's what Erskine was getting to, is you need to understand what you're signing on to. And so we have to embrace that tension. We have to trust God's sovereignty in that tension. We have to act righteously in that tension. And we have to accept that at the end of the day, God is in the heavens and he does as he pleases, and he will restore all things at the end. And I think the churches need to do a better job of teaching that to the people, and the people need to incorporate that understanding inside of their discipleship. That's the way forward.
Excellent. Let me get my screen here. Back again. Check it the record. Let's begin. So I would really love to see the church flourish in the area of discipleship. I don't know, because I don't know the situation surrounding Jaden Ivey in terms of his local church, his pastor, his camaraderie as it relates to his spiritual formation. And I think that that's vital. That's one aspect of this story that I'll be following in the future, is who are the people who are around him, who are in Bible study with him, who are the people who he can sharpen some things and maybe even ask some questions. When I was younger, I thought as a child, I acted as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And part of that responsibility is to go to people like Jason, other friends, and say, hey, I've got this idea and I'm thinking about this. I want to go online and I want to go on a 45-minute rant about X, Y, and Z. And there have been times when Jason has told me, that's not a good idea. Nah, you probably shouldn't do that. Does he have, and are we willing to be the type of people who would be in somebody's life to be able to, with some degree of wisdom and maturity, point them in the direction of the cross and ask them about greater things? Is there a way in which he could have communicated the thoughts that he had about, the NBA's Gay Pride Month, while also extending the gospel and an opportunity for people to be transformed by the love and mercy of Jesus Christ? Perhaps there's a better way of doing things. And as you get older, you figure out, yes, the passion, the zeal, I'm in lockstep with what it is that he's talking about. I see the level of unrighteousness. I think all of us, do we feel the world is broken? We do. But at the end of the day, we recognize that even among my neighbors, they know generally what it is that we believe. We don't knock on their door every day and tell them that today could be the day that they die. Are they ready to face eternity, trust Jesus? There are some subtle ways, and I believe wise ways, thoughtful ways, helpful ways that we're helping our neighbors understand the importance of the cross, understand the beauty of the resurrection and redemption. And so those are points of the discussion in which I hope that people who are engaged at this level of the conversation will continue to have in relationship to Jaden Ivey and others. There are other athletes that are out there who want to make a bold proclamation. And as Jason said before, there's just not enough athletes. I mean, they're lions on the field, but they're soy boys when it comes to talking about these issues. So when someone actually does come out and talk about these issues, I don't want him to be forgotten about when the next news cycle comes, or we start chasing UFOs or all these different things that we get enamored with as, Western people and Western Christians. Let's keep that energy. Let's keep our prayer and support for Jaden Ivey and other athletes that are out there that are bold in their faith. And perhaps someone in some kind of governmental position may watch a show like this and think, here's an arena in which I need to take up the battle and the cause. I didn't get a chance to read the book, but Vodi Bakum, one of his last books that he wrote was about the LGBT and trans community, arguing the thought it's not the same thing as being black. And I think even though I didn't read that book, the title itself speaks volumes to this conversation. We've allowed a certain level of LGBT rights and trans rights in our culture that never should have existed and should not be today. And so there's a lot in this discussion, and I'm glad that Jason and I were able to have the discussion on the ground that we should be having these kind of discussions, which is a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more engaged than just a flyby Twitter response or somebody's social media blackout page that says we need to support Jaden Ivey. So let's be about that business of being, if we're going to be followers of Christ, let's be ardent followers of Christ, and not just on the surface level. That's my way forward, takeaway for the church.
Amen. I like it.
Man, this is a good show. This is a good show, folks. Another banner episode. This is the way forward. You want to say anything about Easter's tomorrow?
He's risen.
He's risen indeed.
It's a fact. He's risen.
Yeah, it's a fact. You got your message prepared?
I do. Yep. I'll be out of 1 Corinthians 15.
Okay.
Pretty much the summary of the whole chapter in about 28, 30 minutes ish. 40 minutes.
Don't play.
Yeah, get to church. Get to church. Hear about the resurrection. I love talking about the resurrection. I don't know what it is about the resurrection of all the doctrines aside from God's sovereignty. I could spend, if I can go back and do my doctorate work again, I would do something on the resurrection. It's just a fascinating.
There's just so much material.
And I would love to do it in through the lens of disability. I think that'd be the restored, glorified body.
Ooh, that's a nice.
That'd be cool.
That's a nice angle.
Yeah,
I'm going to be preaching from Luke 24, and we're going to be talking about the harmonizing some of what's going on there, but also the title of my message is Alive Today. And I ultimately want to ask the question, are you alive? Because you could be living but spiritually dead.
Yep. Good. That's awesome, man.
So let's be about our Father's business.
That's it. Amen.
The Way Forward Show.